Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Finch, and I am here with Stepan Hovnanian, and we are entering our final episode of our If I Had a Nickel series. It has been a fun summer, and we are winding it up with Sara Hawkins, who's going to be talking to us about graphics, what you can use, what you can borrow, what you can not steal, and all these other permissions and burning questions that some of you have or you should have. So good morning, Stepan.
Good morning. Thanks, and thank you, Sarah, for joining us. This is going to be, I think it's a great way to wrap up this whole series. You know, we've been trying this whole time to get people to just be more accountable about their web presence. And, you know, we've talked about accountability from the standpoint of knowing your logins. We've talked about plugins and performance and analytics, and there was another one, oh yeah, and local search, and understanding your accounts, you know, where you are around the internet. And now we're going to wrap this up with sort of the, you know, the licensing part of it, which I think is so important because we all work together in this collaborative world, working with other web designers and all. So I hope you guys have questions, and if not, we have some. But we welcome you, Sarah. Thank you again for hopping in with this hangout, and I really appreciate it. Why don't we? I should do an introduction, a proper one of you, but I'm going to let you take that one, and then we have a couple of questions that I think we'll just start off with. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I'm an attorney, so everything that I say is for informational purposes only. I've been welcome to the disclaimer. I've been an attorney for over 15 years, and I've been working with entrepreneurs and small business owners for most of my career. I've worked in a large law firm, and I work with very large clients every once in a while too. But really, my passion has always been to work with the small business owners because legal services is always, for many small business owners, have been out of reach. And I really felt that if anyone were to need legal services, it would be the small business owners because they often have the most to lose. I've been involved with the internet and marketing online and the legal interplay since basically the internet came out. And so this stuff is actually very fun for me. I can talk about it for hours and just never get bored.
Oh, that's great. So let's dive right in, and I want to tackle one of those burning questions because this is one of the things we talked about in the green room. Carrie Ann Foster had a great question. Let me bring that up right here. You would think it could come up, but it didn't. Anyway, her question was, how does copyright work when you're taking a screenshot or photo of another photo? For example, if she were to create a graphic and wanted to use the cover photo of this HOA that I created. So, Sarah?
Okay, I was going to tell her that was a great question. It is a really good question because there are a number of issues involved, and it happens in various situations, not just screen capping something online, but taking, like she said, a photo of another photo. You see when you go to museums not to take photos of artwork and stuff like that, and that's usually for flash purposes. But now with cell phones, you don't need flash. It ultimately is a copyright issue. So if you take a photo of a copyrighted work, you don't obtain the copyright, which is contrary to what most people think. I took the picture. I own the copyright of it. So you may own the copyright of your image, which is a picture of somebody else's work, which nobody really wants because they want the underlying work. And so you have a problem there because you're still using somebody's copyrighted work. And it depends. So it depends the purpose. So if I'm teaching, this is a hybrid example because it's for information. We're trying to teach online professionals how to work with copyrighted issues and such. I'm hearing a cat, so I'm sorry, I'm just a cat. So what happens when you have a HOA like this, and for informational purposes, could we get away with fair use? If you're doing a blog post and you are trying to provide steps for something and a tutorial on how to use Flash, in order to do it, you need to show a good situation of Flash and a bad situation of when Flash is used, and you're going to use somebody else's image because they have a great example of how they used white balance and all this other stuff. Perhaps that's a fair use of their image to take a screen cap or a photo of it. But in general, what you get into is something called derivative works, and that's the legal term. If you wanted to search on it, it would be derivative works, and that's creating a secondary work from somebody else's stuff, for which the copyright holder obtains the copyright. They own the rights to derivative works, which is why things like fanfic, sometimes there's issues, sometimes there's not issues, depends on what people do. Memes are sometimes a great example of copyright derivative works gone wrong, because they've taken a copyrighted work and then you type over it and stuff like that. And some people get really upset with it, and some people just kind of go with the flow. And I think that's kind of the problem, is we have examples out there of screenshots and photos of photos where nobody cares what's going on, and then we have situations where people are very, very upset. And screenshots sometimes are difficult, because if there's a watermark on it or they have their copyright information and you crop that out, that often opens you up to very, very large liability, because the U.S. Copyright Act specifically states that if you remove copyright management data, then there are statutory damages. So if they've registered their work, the damages can be several thousands of dollars, in addition to covering their attorney's fees to recover that.
Well, I've seen this too. I have clients that'll send me photos all the time, and they'll say, "Oh, put this in my newsletter." And I have learned, especially with certain people, I asked, I said, "And where'd you get that image? Where'd you find it? Send it back to me in an email of your source of that image, and let me know that you have the rights to use that image." And many times they'll send it back, and "Oh, I found it. I did a Google search. Here it was." Or, "Can you take out that ugly watermark thing that's on it? You know Photoshop. You fix it." And guys, you can't do that.
If there's one thing anyone learns from this, is never crop out or airbrush out or remove somebody's watermark. It's a liability for you, but it's also one of the things that photographers really dislike the most, because it shows a wanton disregard for their work and for identifying them and their work.
So,
and Carrie, that was a great question.
Go ahead,
Yeah, go ahead, Stepan.
Okay, fine. So that that does bring up a good, a kind of a nice segue. Although before I jump into that, I want to just bring up, like, you can, for screenshots, for example, like Google, if you're going to take a screenshot of a Google search, they actually have brand guidelines that they've written out on their website about how you're allowed to present a Google search results page, for example, and how you're allowed to use screenshots of their properties. So I just want to throw that out there. I learned it when I was doing writing my pro tip series. Because I'm putting it on a Kindle. I wanted to make sure everything was all hunky-dory, and things like you're not allowed to write over top of the search results page. You can only outline the thing, outline something you want to do, and then put something off to the side. So there's brand guidelines. So I would encourage anybody who wants to do those kinds of things to maybe take a look at the platform you're on or the website you're on, just see if there's any brand guidelines. But you brought up the thing about photographers. And removing copyright and all. So, let's talk about it, like, for your blog. So just for the blog, what is an appropriate way to do an image credit?
Well, we'll start with the Creative Commons, and the easiest thing is that I did a post on Creative Commons in plain English.
Wait, can you, right now, we probably lost half the audience. Can you explain briefly what Creative Commons means?
Okay, Creative Commons is a licensing structure, and you'll usually see a CC on an image where somebody took it. If you use Flickr a lot, images are under Creative Commons, and what it is it's a licensing structure that allows people to select how their image is shared for free. And there's a host of different licensing mechanisms under Creative Commons. And I did a Creative Commons in plain English post that explained all of that. Because you're right, Stefan, there are ways to credit. And in Creative Commons, I would say 9.5 times out of 10, people don't credit according to the rules of Creative Commons. And most people don't mind as long as they get credit, but they don't want something like photo credit, and then it's linked so the name's not there, but it goes to a certain page or whatever, what have you. Stock photos, if you're using a stock photo site that has low-cost stock photos, sometimes their license requires a very specific credit. What's nice is many of them will provide the code for it, so you can just put that in. But in general, if you are using something that isn't yours, the minimum you should do is, if you have the legal right to use it, photo credit isn't for copyright purposes, it's plagiarism purposes. And it's a little nuanced because copyright law actually doesn't require photo credit or credit to a work because you can't take it unless you're given permission. And if you're given permission, they'll tell you how to credit them. So it's a little circular. But if you have a right to use it, then the first thing you should do is ask, how do you want it credited? Some photographers want you to link to the specific page. Some want you to link to their home page or their Flickr gallery or what have you. But I'm a big fan of, put somebody's name out there. Don't just put photo credit so nobody really sees or clicks. Give the person credit. I mean, you want credit for your work. They want credit for theirs. And, if your argument is, well, I'm trying to boost their profile or, showcase their work, well, put their name out there. You're not taking photos, so no one's going to say, hey, I don't like theirs. You're not losing anything in giving somebody full credit. But stock photos, check your stock photo license agreement. The more you pay for stock photos, chances are the less likely you are required to provide credit. But a lot of the free ones will give you an embed code or specifically tell you. And you don't link to the artist, you have to link sometimes to the stock photo site.
Part of this comes back to manners.
Exactly.
It's being polite. Some of us, or a lot of us here on Google Plus, this is a very hat tip credit environment. And a lot of us, we're getting our manners refined, and we're being reminded of what we were taught as kids to always say thank you for things. Mm-hmm. And I know many times I'll do an image search and I'll find something on Flickr. I'll actually go to that Flickr stream, and I will do my best, because you can't always find a way to contact people, and to find them and say, do you mind? This is where I want to put it. This is the context, so they have some more information. Would you mind if I used your photo? And I'd like to link back to you. I have never had somebody turn me down. And I have them email it to me, that permission, too. So, exactly.
You want something in writing to say that they can, that they're authorizing you to share it in whatever manner, especially if it's for a limited purpose. So they say it's okay to share it on Google+, but they didn't say you could use it in a client's newsletter or on your Hangout or what have you, without other things.
Or a brochure, or a big old sign.
Yeah, sign, a billboard, one of those things. On your LinkedIn profile is your picture. But the other thing is that many of these platforms have a share mechanism. And YouTube has one, and I think Flickr has one. I think Google Plus has one, Facebook has it, and they have a share button. Twitter, it's the retweet button. But if it's from the source, so you go to the person's Flickr page, and if they have the share mechanism on it, use that, because the license for that platform means that you can share it without issues. It will be kind of an iframe or an embed, but because the platform has a license when someone uploads their stuff, by sharing it through the platform mechanism, you're not actually doing it, it's the platform. And some people have some difficulties with that and don't quite understand that what they've uploaded to YouTube, for instance, if it's not private, if it's uploaded publicly and you click the share, you can share it any way YouTube allows you to without it being a copyright violation, because they have given the platform the share license.
Does that make sense, everybody? That's a really, really great point. And what it kind of negates, that Sarah's talking about is saying, all right, let me right-click on the image and save as. Maybe not so much for YouTube, but for if you're on Flickr or Pinterest or wherever, and you go and you're going to save the image to your desktop, and even on Google Plus, versus including the image some other way, that uses that platform. That's a better way to do it, because it also retains all of the the metadata for that image. I mean, if you're going to take a screen capture, now you've created a new image from that image. Goes back to what Sarah was talking about in the beginning, and
derivative
it's a really
derivative.
Yes, it's a really important thing. I know, like in my a couple situations for me, like I've gone out to people whose images that I really like would actually fit really well with my blog post, and I'll ask them, I really like this image. I know you're not a photographer. Like there's a glass blowing company that I just fell in love with one of their photos, and I wanted to use it for one of my blogs. And I asked them, I'm like, can I do this? Give me a link, blah, 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 just exactly the way you described it. And and like Susan said, it was, everybody was like, yeah, sure, do it. This is awesome. Thank you. So yeah, it's really an important thing to make sure that you're just doing it the right way with good manners. And can you speak real quick? Well, I probably know what you're going to say, but just real quick, could you speak to the idea of when you're buying photos on stock sites, how there's different kinds of licensing for that, and
right.
To make sure that
Thanks for asking that, because people think if you buy it for one thing, you can use it for everything. Go, Sarah, go.
Well, it's all you have to do is search for Getty letters from Getty Images, and can get lost, and that's quite a big rabbit hole. Because when you purchase a stock photo, you purchase it for a specific purpose. Some have very broad licenses. Some have very narrow licenses. The cheaper the stock photo, the less you can do with it. For instance, many of the dollar stock photo sites, for instance, or ones where you have a subscription for a certain amount, you can have 10 or 15 photos a month or whatever. They will limit them to web use only. So you can't put it in even if you have an online newsletter that's emailed out, that's not considered web use. So read through what you're getting the photo for, what the limitations are. There are size restrictions. So if you purchase the medium size, you can only use it in these host of things, versus if you purchase the high-res image, which obviously costs more. I mean, you could put up a billboard on the side of the highway and they don't care. But the lower the resolution the image that's offered, the less you can use it for. And that's purposeful, because you don't really need a high-resolution image if you want to just populate your social network with, photos of cats. Or if you just really need something for your webinar of, a person sitting at a computer, or someone pulling their hair out, or someone riding a horse backwards. It's
or
amazing.
drawing backwards on a glass wall with marker, right? Love those.
But that gets us, or everybody's hands in the middle. That gosh, guys, we're razzing you for those of you that use the same stock images that a lot of people use. Stop doing it. But that gets us to photos we take ourselves. And sometimes we take a lot of photos in this family, and sometimes they include other people. They don't always include just my kids. They might have, others, and it might fit perfectly. And I find myself actually going and texting the parents and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing with this. Would you mind if I use it? It was a really great picture of Emma or whoever. And it's, used in this context. And half the time they say yes, half the time they say no, because it's their kids. They don't care about the money. That isn't it. So can you touch on model releases in those situations when it isn't something that you've purchased where it comes with a model release, but when you're taking photos or you're borrowing a photo from somebody on Facebook with their permission, or from Instagram with their permission, but it includes others?
That's an excellent topic. Model releases are something a lot of people don't know about. Anytime there's people in a photo, real people, not the little cartoon people, but anytime there are real people in a photo, and it's going to be used for, usually it's commercial purposes, you need to have a model release. And you will get those with stock photos that have people in them. All major stock photo sites will obtain a model release. Some of the lesser-known photo sites that people are using may or may not. So it's something that you would need to investigate. When they're your photos, anytime you're going to use a photo that includes other people, whether it's for business or commercial purposes, or even just to share on, your own page, if there are minors in the image, if you're sharing it, obviously ask permission, because as you mentioned, Susan, some parents just don't want images of their children shared for privacy and security reasons, and
I hate to interrupt this great conversation, because I want to get back to it. This is huge. This is model releases, and a lot of you have no clue. But we are going to take a quick break here for a station identification. This is If I Had a Nickel with Susan Finch and Stepan Hovnanian. This is the final in our series. We are talking about graphics, stock photography, model releases, photo releases, your rights, and what you shouldn't be doing. So let's all just take a deep breath. And we're back, because then I know where to cut it for my commercials for later on when we broadcast this on radio. And so we're returning now. We have Sara Hawkins on with us for If I Had a Nickel. And the If I Had a Nickel series is for every time we've heard the woes from our clients and friends or whomever and our peers when things go awry. And most of the time the root of it is personal responsibility and what you should be doing for yourself and your business without saying, oh, I didn't know. Too bad. You have to know it. So, Sara, let's get back to the show and talking about model releases.
So, a model release is for humans. I'll put that in there too. It's for live humans. It doesn't include pets and various things like that, unless the pet happens to be a well-known one. So, for instance, like Grumpy Cat or something like that. But in general, if there are minors in the photo, anyone under the age of 18, whether you're using it for personal or commercial purposes, you should definitely obtain permission from the parents. If you're using it for commercial purposes, a model release has to be in writing and signed. If there's a problem, you're going to be going into court, and you're going to want to have proof other than being able to tell the judge, oh, I got a text, and it's on my other phone, and I switched carriers, and I don't have my text messages anymore. So if it's on a text, you need to screen cap that thing and save it for posterity. Do something. But usually it's an email exchange often is sufficient to establish that there's at least some consent. But if it's for commercial purposes, the people need to sign off on it. It's your business, it's your money, it's your lawsuit, it's your lawyer's fees that are involved in it. And people get, kind of particular about how they are used and portrayed. We see it often where, people are interviewed for a news show even, and you sign off on it and stuff, and then they've twisted your words or they've taken something out of context, and next thing you know, you're turned into a meme, or people are using images of you for other purposes because you advocated for a particular product or something and you didn't mean to. So anytime you use a person, you need to obtain permission. And also, I'll mention, a lot of people like to do photo contests for social media contests and things like that. One of the biggest issues brands have is that when people upload photos, the rules, if there are rules, I'm assuming there are going to be rules, say that you have to have a model release for other people in it. So if it's you and your friends doing something and you upload this photo because it's super cool, because you're doing something awesome and you think you really can win, but you don't get your friends to sign off, you've agreed that your friends will sign off. So if your friends get mad and try to sue because your photo won and now it's all over TV and the internet, it's kind of your problem, and the company's going to come after you for any legal fees that they would have to pay.
That's huge, and I'm going to nugget that because that is a big red flag. And with kids, they don't realize it because they enter stuff without any parent even knowing. And they're taking these awesome photos and editing them and stuff, and you're exactly right. Oh my gosh, that's even videos.
Videos are a big issue. Anytime you're using other people in it and using it for a photo contest or video contest, in the official rules, from larger brands definitely use official rules. Smaller companies often don't, which is a big red flag in and of itself. But your rules should specifically state that you don't use other people's intellectual property, so you don't use other people's photos or videos. And then, of course, the model release issue when using other people. So they start to build on each other. You see how you've got a sweepstakes issue, a contest issue, you've got a model release issue, you've got a copyright issue, potential liability, legal liability. It's a snowball that can pick up speed.
Scary stuff a little bit, to be honest with you. You almost want to put the phone away all the time, but I mean, it kind of sounds like you can go down the direction of taking mostly your own pictures and making sure there's as few people in them as possible, and you'll be safe, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
Well,
all my blog posts are going to have like pictures of my lawn now from now on.
Blur everybody else. I'm going to blur all the background crowd. That's a good question though too. What about a crowd shot? What if I'm at an event and I'm reporting on it, and then it fits in with a topic that I'm doing? Maybe there's a tug-of-war contest, and in the distance I can see the tug-of-war, and we have the two teams, better than the stock photos of the tug-of-war where everybody's in suits, and they're getting all muddy, and I want to put it on my site. Do I have to go and get permission from every one of those people in the tug-of-war, or is it only when it's a close-up or a certain percentage of the image?
So there are actually a couple issues related to taking pictures of people in public. Most of us know about the paparazzi and how they obtain photos of celebrities. Rarely do they obtain photos of celebrities in private, and when they do, there's a big issue. But what they do is they wait till they're in public, because you can take a picture of anyone in public. A lot of people don't like that, but if you're just out on the street, you can. What makes it a little challenging is when you have an organized group, a conference, like a game, like the tug-of-war thing or something like that, where it's not truly public, where there might be some relation of privacy, some expectation of privacy. So if it's just, high school kids on field day or something like that, you have to worry about the fact that it's during school hours, and you've got issues related to privacy because there's an expectation of privacy when you go to school. If this is at a blog conference and somebody they're starting their stock photo resume and they need a picture of 12 people doing tug-of-war in suits, then everybody gets out there. You may not have an expectation of privacy. And that's the big issue, is what is your expectation of privacy? If I'm at a private event and there's just a handful of people at someone's home, I may have an expectation that you're not going to take pictures of me drunk. It's one of the issues that people have. That people have, when they go to private parties and let loose a little bit too much. But basically, once you step outside your house door, your expectation of privacy goes way down. You have a very high expectation of privacy in your doctor's office, so you wouldn't expect that the person next to you is like taking pictures of you, thumbing through, some magazine about diabetes or something and posting, oh, look who's at, the doctor's, the oncologist or something like that. So there's an expectation of privacy there.
Well, what about...
that makes sense.
I know.
Common sense comes back into play, right? Here we go again. We're getting good at this, Susan. We keep talking over each other.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
I love it.
The common sense thing, but it does, and you brought home something. Sometimes I'm out, and I'm in Portland, and I see things, and I see people, and oh good God, I have to take a photo. And Tom's always hitting me. He's driving. He's hitting me. He's like, "Don't do that. They're going to beat us up, or they're going to go after us, or it's going to make somebody mad." It's like, you can't turn this image down. Oh my God, I can't believe what they're doing or wearing or whatever it is. And they're good talking points. So I can use that because they're out in public on a street. Correct?
That's how we get the people of Walmart.
So, if I can,
there are sites after site after site of people shopping what people in the Walmart store. There's a song about it too, even. Wow. And so you go shopping at your department store or retail shop. You don't really have an expectation of privacy. What you will find often is that people will blur the face, or they'll get the picture from the person where you can't necessarily identify them, because if you're trying to, if it's a compromising position for the person, it could be embarrassing, and it could have long-term effects because the internet is there forever, so to speak, and sometimes we don't know the context of why somebody is doing what they're doing, and so once we put our context to something, it becomes very odd. I have to say, I did take a picture of somebody the other day. They were in line to return something at Costco in front of me. They were returning bananas. And so I took a picture, not of their face, but kind of their body, because I just thought that was very odd. It's like, who returns bananas?
Yeah, I've never returned bananas. We usually just eat them. I have a best practices question for you, because I think, again, we're trying to reach business owners and web designers, and the two of them working together and all. So what's the best practice for, when you're going to go acquire stock photography and you're working with somebody to do it on your behalf? I think it's that most of these stock photography sites, the way that most of them are set up are that you're buying it for a single use, mostly, like, let's just say for your website, you're not allowed to really repurpose it into a template for sale. Not allowed to, like you said, if you get in the lower res versions, you're not allowed to make the larger bodies of work with them, things like that. But if the web designer, for example, is going to go and buy them on your behalf, which is very common, because chances are they're going to be the ones doing all the research, which sucks. But let them do it, right? And and they also know really what version of that picture with the crowd and everybody doing tug of war in suits is actually going to fit with your website. Hopefully not any of them, but just in case, maybe you're doing a website like that. So, but my point is, like, they're going to know which one's going to fit best. They're going to be able to have that design eye. They're going to acquire it on your behalf. So in most cases, but what is the best practice to handle acquiring stock photography so you don't get in trouble down the road? Because I have a horror story about it.
I think a lot of people...
And let me add a caveat to that too. If you buy it for one client, as the person picking them out and buying it, can you use it for the other clients? Because that's right.
You can't see me shaking my head. Oh, shit.
Yes, you can. I pinned you.
Oh.
And it's one of those things where it depends, because some designers get a license, and their license is for design purposes, and they identify themselves as a graphic designer, and they pay a $5,000 annual fee for stock photography license to this particular stock photo company, and that means when they download an image, they can use it for whatever client they want. They can use it for 10 clients if this is just such a popular image, some of which we see time and time again on website after website, and it's like, oh, you had that designed by so-and-so. And so it depends. And that usually is when you have a designer who's been in the business for a very long time and who knows the rules for stock photography. Nowadays, though, a lot of people just get into design work. They are self-made. They've learned on their own, and they don't know the legal part of being a designer. And they may have an agreement with their client that releases all the liability and puts it on the client. But the reality is that the client is not going to pay for your mistake. If you don't know the rules and the client is hit with a several $1,000 fee or a DMCA where their website's taken down because of your stock photography blunder, then it's going to be up to you. I mean, liability release or not, your negligence or your recklessness and disregard for what the law is isn't going to hold a lot of water. And that's why you have to know what the license is that you're buying. And you're right, Susan, if you buy the license so that you can use it for a website, don't expect to use it for a brochure, a business card, or the backdrop for your expo at the expo that you need, your step and repeat, various things like that. You need to know what you're buying it for, and sometimes they are single use, and you're like, oh, I really like that. I'm going to pay $7, and you download it. Well, you should, one, know where you download it from, and if they don't give it to you in the info, you can't remember, did I get it from iStock, did I get it from Exchange, or where you got it from, then you need to find a way to record where you got these images from and where you got the file names from, because chances are you're going to change the file name because it's just a bunch of letters and what have you that identifies it for that stock photo site. But when you upload it to somebody's website, you want to optimize it for SEO, so you're not going to call it a bunch of letters and numbers. You're going to have an actual file name. And so that's where it gets really tricky. If you don't read, it really comes down to, you need to read what you're clicking I agree to. When you click, you agree to these terms and services, you need to know what you're agreeing to.
And that is it gets back to, Stefan, it gets back to taking responsibility. And whether you are the client and you have a web developer doing this for you, or a graphic designer doing all this for you, or you are the graphic designer doing it for a client, you guys got to make sure that, yes, they have permission, they give it to you in writing to prove to you that they can use it, and yes, when you purchase it for them, I know it takes more time, guys, but get that license that comes with the photos that you're purchasing. Download it. What?
Oh, no, I was going to say the other thing is that sometimes designers stop being designers, and how do you prove it? Because sometimes the problem is down the road. It's not immediate. So your designer gets hired by a company, moves, whatever, you don't know how to get hold of them anymore. You're still on the hook because they're trying to take your site down, and the response back, but my designer did it, and I can't get a hold of my designer, and they'll be like, yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Well, and that's personal responsibility. So here's my recommendation. This is what I do for all of my clients. I go into whatever stock photography place we're going to use, and I make a light box for them. I have them select the final images and purchase it themselves and get the license agreements. They have their steps from me on how to get images. They save it all into a folder, so they have those. And I only use the images for their stuff that they have purchased, unless I have taken them myself. And that's best practices, at least for me and for my clients. And it seems to keep all of us out of hot water, because Getty will come after you after 3 years for an image this big and say, you've been using it on your website, because I can look through the Wayback Machine, which is the web history archive thing, and see you've been using it on your homepage for 3 years and you never paid for it. And I want you to pay now.
Yeah, that was my horror story.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to steal your thunder.
To me. No, not to me, but I had a client who they had their graphic designer design them a web banner, and it used an image that they had gotten from a real estate agent that I guess had acquired it properly from Getty. Didn't realize that he couldn't pass that along to his other clients. One of his first situations where he had, where he ran into that problem. But yeah, and then Getty comes after, my clients. This is like 3 people removed for like a $600 fee on this thing. And, they're like, they went to me first. I'm like, yeah, well, you have to talk to so-and-so because he built the image. And then, he's like, well, I got it from this guy. And they were like, well, they worked it out. But, yeah, it wasn't. It's the last thing you want, right? Because now you get stuck with this kind of thing, and a takedown is one thing. Like that's really, really bad. But even if you're just getting yelled at, that's like you could be running your business. You could have other things to do, and being able to say, it comes up and it'll come up, and you say, okay, here, boom, here's all my information. Go have a nice day because we did it all right. Then you can go back to running your business. But if you have to now spend 2-3 days or a week, whatever, chasing people down, I mean, forget it. It's time and money, and not even just the fines. It's time and money, elsewhere too. So it just I like what Susan does too. I do the same kind of thing. And if they would really prefer me to buy the images, then I put them in a folder that's dedicated to them, and then that's the end of it. It's the best I can do. But same thing with the Lightbox.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and we need to wrap this up. We have a lot of great tips to keep us out of hot water, some ideas on best practices, and things you can do with graphic images. So some of the biggest things is make sure you get your licenses. Make sure you know the source of your images. Whether the client sends them to you or you are finding them yourself, make sure that you really have the rights to use them. Get model releases when you have real people in it. If you take them photos yourself, do them out in public for one thing, but make sure you have a model release for those close-ups and different things. And again, know your sources. Do not plead ignorance. Do not say you found it, and don't accept that. Graphic designers don't accept that from any client, that they have the image and they can use it. And graphic designers, if you're doing this on behalf of your clients, we highly suggest set up a Lightbox, let your clients purchase it, let them have the rights to the image, and keep it all in a folder, and they can zip share it with you, and you keep it in their client folder so you know who has the rights to which, because you can't crisscross the rights. If one client buys it, you can't say, I made something for them, I'm going to use it over here. You can't do that. So I think that's a pretty good wrap-up. Sara, I really appreciate your coming on today and everything you have taught us and clarified. Can you tell people how they can find you?
I can be found, I have a website, sarahfhawkins.com, and I'm on Twitter at Sara F. Hawkins, and I am occasionally on Google Plus at just plain old Sara Hawkins. I get to be the original Sara Hawkins on Google Plus.
And Stefan, how can we find you?
Just Google me. As long as you spell my name right, it'll be fine.
All right. And me, pretty easy too, Susan Finch. SusanFinch.com plus Susan Finch. This is, again, our final installment of If I Had a Nickel. This has been a fabulous series, Stefan. What a joy to have spent summer with you.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Sara, for all the great information. I hope that you have a great blog too, with a lot of really intriguing information and breakdowns of different things, especially selfies. I remember that's one of the first times we got connected was after the Emmys selfie whole thing came out. Really, really cool insights from you. So I would encourage everybody to go over there and check out Sarah's blog. She's really smart cookie. So, and thank you again.
We're gonna post that. We're gonna post a couple samples to model releases, and I hear there's an app. I heard it in the comment stream that actually includes a model release when you take a photo. That they sign it on your phone.
It makes sense. I mean, it's right there, little finger, sign it off. Although then the person probably is like, I didn't read it, I don't know what it said.
Well, you can learn more, and again, subscribe to Sarah's blog. She has fabulous information all the time, and if you haven't circled her, circle her too. So thank you again. This has been If I Had a Nickel. I'm Susan Finch, and it has been a pleasure and an honor to be teaching you guys.